Meet hands-free calling. In Guild Wars 2, vertical progression past level 80 and ascended gear is a rarity. After a couple hundred hours of leveling, getting ascended, and getting masteries, you are responsible for curating your own endgame goals. After years of grinding fractals in most of the raids, I'm looking to take on an unsuspecting solo challenge for my endgame goal. I will be leveling to 80 without using weapons, and documenting the journey along the way. So when we ended the last video, I was about level 20, and I've now reached level 30, which means I have access to Ascalonian Catacombs story, and I've been able to play around with my first trait line, and I'm really liking this build because the lesser elementals are great for sustained damage. They also keep a lot of the aggro off of me, which has been pretty useful. It's turning out to be a relatively cheesy build, but I think some of my other alternatives would be much easier, so I don't know what to think about it, because something like a Conjures based build would be much higher damage, much higher survivability even. So I've been avoiding Conjures because they, take your skills 1 through 5 and change them, but they don't technically show up as weapons in your weapon skills panel. So I don't know how to feel about those. If I decide to maybe take on some really challenging content down the road, maybe I would change my mind on using Conjures, but I think at least during this leveling process, I'm not going to be using them. Anyways, for certain encounters, it's nice to have the summons take some aggro because I don't have enough dodges to be able to avoid all of the damage, and I definitely can't afford to go super heavy into toughness or vitality to tank hits, or I just won't be doing any damage. In an AC story, there's actually some bosses that can hit pretty hard. Relena and Visar were hitting me for about 900 with every attack, and my total HP pool was about 2600, so I could not last very long if both of them were focusing entirely on me. With no way to avoid damage beside dodges and kiting, damage catches up quickly to me, even if I use every dodge to evade an attack. I was able to kite most of those attacks, but was pretty dependent on Relena and Visar staying aggroed. My first attempt at level 30, it just didn't work. After about 2 hours, I wasn't able to progress past Relena and Visar, so I decided to leave and get some upgrades. The first one, gaining just 1 level, unlocked my elite skill, which is a pretty solid chunk of DPS, and provides me with 1 more summon than Relena and Visar can aggro on instead of me with the elite. I also decided to look for some better food buffs. You're an innkeeper and you sell mining tools? After a little research on the wiki, I decided to go for boiled crawdads, a food that can be bought for only 8 copper each from a vendor in Blazer Ridge Steppes. So 50 toughness at this level actually does make a really big difference, and the precision is nothing to turn your nose up at as well. I went from taking about 900 damage to 700 damage from Relena and Visar's attacks, which is a nearly 30% difference, so pretty huge. The general rotation that I'm using throughout these clips is spawning fire elementals and using my Glyph of Storms and fire attunements due to the low cooldown and pretty high damage. When attacking structures, I'd usually try to use the Glyph in water attunement because it has the same cooldown as using it in fire attunement, but it's more power damage and structures don't take condi damage in dungeons. I would also swap to water to use my heal because the regen is a big boost to healing, and really the extra might that I would get from using it in fire is not that useful. Same with the benefits from earth and air, it's just not really worth it. Especially when, I really only have the one way of healing right now, so squeezing out that extra regen helps a lot. You may also see me swapping to air and earth when water is on cooldown, and that's because I'm using Pyromancer's Puissance? I don't know. To do some damage, and it scales with might, so basically I kind of sacrifice the might stacks that are on me up to 10, and that extends the duration of burning for each stack of might that's consumed by half a second. So it's kind of weird that my elementals grant might. I really didn't realize that they do, but anytime one of my elementals uses their flame burst skill, even the lesser elementals have this. The flame burst is an active use skill for the elite, just the regular fire elemental, but for the lesser fire elementals, that's something that they just kind of use off cooldown by default. That actually grants 3 stacks of might each, so very useful. And I think it's basically using that Pyromancer's Puissance as well, so anytime they are using an attack, it procs it as well. So I actually have really decent might generation with this build, so that's pretty dope. I also have Sunspot, which is a minor, and with it Burning Rage, which upgrades Sunspot to do a good bit of burning. And since completing the dungeon, I've actually started using the air trait line, because having the glyph cooldown reduction is really nice, because I'm just using so many glyphs with this build. It even allows me to have an extra lesser elemental up at once, so instead of 3, I have 4 up. It's a huge boost to the build overall. And I think going forward, just kind of looking towards endgame here, once we hit level 80, I want to go Air, Fire, Tempest, because Fire and Air both have really good DPS with attunement swapping, and Air has the glyph synergy, plus overloads on Tempest are going to be 4 entirely new skills to use that are really strong. As you can see in this clip here, I did end up finally beating Relena and Vasar. Even with some of the upgrades I mentioned, a lot of my success depended on not being focused for a lot of the fight. The rest of the bosses were pretty simple, and even Adelburn could just be kited around the arena, and had just one stomp attack that had to be dodged. All in all, I'm happy with the results, and I'm looking forward for the next PvE challenge to conquer. At the moment, I'm thinking of trying to do as many solo dungeon paths as I'd be able to, but if you guys can think of anything else that I should try to tackle while I'm leveling, feel free to let me know in the comments. The next video that I upload will probably be a return to my left-click only Ultimate Iron Man in Old School RuneScape. I stopped playing the account when I got hooked on my 0 XP Thieving Pet grind, and just never really picked it back up until recently. Playing a lot of this Guild Wars 2 account has really gotten me back into Old School RuneScape Snowflakes as well, so that's been cool. I'm hoping to establish an upload cadence where every other progress video is Guild Wars 2 or Old School RuneScape, but there may be some extra videos thrown in between as well, so that'll be coming up. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and comment, "Wow, you're so cool, and so is your Guild Wars 2 character."
Barely done the dungeon solo even with weapons. Try to flex some gamer skills but they ain't even threatened. Feel like I've spent my whole life coming in second. Someday nerves are deadened and the void beckons.
Somewhere today in Ascalon there's gonna be a break-in. If they think they can stop my fist then they must be mistaken. Through AoEs and lame elites I will be unshaken. I'm a mental elemental already forsaken.
Dive into the catacombs, I explore this path alone. Unarmed terror of Ascalon, Adelburn, abdicate your throne. Venture into the unknown, exercise the ghostly drones. The first real milestone, doing it all on my own. 1 fire elemental, 2 bread and butter glyphs, 3 lesser elementals, 4 attunements to switch, 5 different boss encounters, 6 kinds of ghost elites, 15 Ascalon lieutenants, not a single fucking weapon.
Open all the coffins, kill the ghosts and bodies dropping down the stairs, and grab the boulder, put it on the plate, kill the champions.
And I can't even hold a weapon.
I can't even hold a weapon. Skills 1 through 5 like these ghosts have departed. I can't even hold a weapon, but we're just getting started.
2 hours have passed so far. Stuck on Relena and Vasar. Fucked over by RNG. Guess it's time to go unlock the elite. Level 31 for another summon. Boiled crawdads. Give a ton of toughness. Think we're ready.
Time for another turn, back to kill. That'll burn, another summon, that'll burn. Lieutenant's no longer a concern. Ghost or graveling I don't discern, no longer so taciturn. Get your ass back in the urn, they don't know but they about to learn. Who need the strap when you got the squad? Fire elemental summons on my rod.
You can't do it. Your brain is flawed. You need some proof or that's constructive fraud.
Well, I'm a constructed god who's known abroad for completing grinds that are kind of odd, so will I finish this dungeon on the nod? You can kick back with the tripod.
I want a new brand of exploration. Fights feel like a shallow ocean. Still don't even know if I can clear this AC story dungeon. Don't know if I can clear with no hands. It's that feeling lost to time sands. Our MMO's dead, is my soul broken? Can I clear AC with no hands?
Bro, I did not realize that fire elementals got titties.
Wait, do they?
I do.
Yeah.
But I think even looking at your fire element.
I think you might be have been alone with your fire element just for a little too long, there, buddy.
I do, though. Can see it when the camera's all.
I mean,
against-
yeah.
Oh, shit, now it's dead.
They even have like thick
Still got tits when
thighs.
they're dead.